In the year 930, a dark cloud gathered over the imperial capital of Heian. Courtiers in long silk robes looked up in fear as the sky turned a deep, unnatural black. Inside the palace, Emperor Dago convened a meeting in the Sarioden chamber to discuss a persistent drought. Suddenly, a blinding flash of lightning struck the wooden roof, killing several officials instantly. Among the dead in the Sarioden chamber was Fujiwara no Kiyochira, a powerful court nobleman who had orchestrated the exile of a rival official years before. As smoke rose from the charred wooden beams, terrified courtiers whispered that this was not a natural disaster. They believed it was the wrath of the angry spirit of Sugawara no Michizane, who had died in exile. To understand how a peaceful scholar of Chinese literature became a vengeful deity of lightning and learning, we must examine the 9th century. Sugawara no Michizane was born in the year 845 into a family of scholars. Unlike the military clans or the dominant Fujiwara regents, the Sugawara family relied entirely on academic talent to survive in the court. From a young age, Michizane showed a brilliant mind for writing poetry in classical Chinese, the official language of government administration. At only 11 years old, he composed a famous poem comparing a plum blossom to the white snow under the moonlight. His father, Sugawara no Koryoshi, recognized his genius and pushed him to study Confucian texts under the oil lamps. In the year 877, after passing the difficult civil service exams, Michizane became a professor of literature at the Monjudo University. His lectures on poetry and administration attracted hundreds of young students eager to enter government service. He gained a reputation for honesty, arguing that administrative positions should be given based on merit rather than family wealth. His administrative skills caught the attention of Emperor Yuda, who took the imperial throne in the year 887. Emperor Yuda wanted to rule independently and reduce the power of the Fujiwara regents, who had controlled the imperial family for generations. The emperor saw in the scholar Michizane a loyal ally to counter the influence of Fujiwara no Maditsune. In the year 890, Emperor Yuda appointed Michizane as the governor of Sanuki province on the island of Shikoku. Although this was a form of political exile from the capital, Michizane worked hard to understand the daily struggles of local farmers. He wrote poems about heavy taxes and crop failures, compiling them in his book, the Kanka Bunso. While governing Sanuki province, Michizane rebuilt the local irrigation canals along the Mano River to help farmers grow rice. His honest and fair administration made him very popular among the local people, who had suffered under corrupt tax collectors. These practical successes convinced Emperor Yuda that Michizane was a capable administrator who could reform the central government. When Michizane returned to Heian in the year 891, Emperor Yuda promoted him to the office of Kurando no Tu. This position as the chief imperial secretary gave him direct control over all official documents and access to the emperor. The promotion of a low-ranking scholar angered the Fujiwara nobles, who saw government offices as their inheritance. In the year 894, Michizane proposed that Japan should suspend sending official embassies to the Tang dynasty of China. Hideta supported this proposal by pointing out that the Tang Empire was collapsing into violent civil war, and the sea journey was too dangerous. The emperor accepted his advice, ending centuries of travel and allowing a distinct Japanese Heian culture to grow. Following the sudden death of the powerful Fujiwara no Maditsune, Emperor Yuda relied even more heavily on Michizane's advice. In the year 895, the emperor promoted Michizane to the office of senior assistant minister, raising him above many high-ranking nobles. This rapid rise generated deep resentment within the Fujiwara clan, who felt their traditional monopoly on power was threatened. To secure Michizane's loyalty, Emperor Yuda arranged a marriage between Michizane's daughter and his own son, Prince Takio. This marriage allied the middle-ranking Sugawara scholar family directly with the imperial bloodline, a privilege usually reserved for the highest nobility. Fujiwara no Takahira, the ambitious young leader of the Fujiwara clan, watched this alliance with growing anger and concern. In the year 897, Emperor Yuda decided to abdicate the throne in favor of his teenage son, Emperor Dago. Before stepping down, Emperor Yuda left a private written instruction, the Campio no Goiki, advising the new emperor to consult Michizane. The retired emperor then took Buddhist vows, becoming a monk but still advising the court from his temple. In the year 899, Emperor Daigo promoted Michizane to Udejin, or the Minister of the Right. At the same time, Fujiwara no Takahira was appointed as Sadaijin, or the Minister of the Left, making them political equals. This was the highest government rank a member of the Sugawara clan had ever achieved in Imperial Japanese history. As the Minister of the Right, Michizane worked to reform the imperial tax system and reduce the tax exemptions of private estates. These private estates, known as shun, were owned by wealthy Fujiwara nobles and Buddhist temples, depriving the imperial treasury of vital revenue. His reforms directly threatened the financial foundation of the Fujiwara clan, accelerating their plans to destroy him. Fujiwara no Takahira began spreading rumors among the courtiers that Michizane was using dark magic and plotting to overthrow the young Emperor Daigo. Takahira claimed that Michizane wanted to replace the emperor with his own son-in-law, Prince Takio, to seize control of the country. These false accusations were designed to play on the fears of the young, inexperienced Emperor Daigo. In the cold winter of the year 901, Takahira formally accused Michizane of treason in front of the imperial court. He presented forged letters and false testimonies from bribed officials, claiming that Michizane had conspired with Prince Takio. Emperor Daigo, frightened by the prospect of a rebellion, immediately signed an imperial decree demoting the scholar. This dramatic political event became known as the Shotai Incident, a turning point that shattered the alliance between the emperor and the Sugawara. Michizane was ordered to leave the capital immediately and travel to Dazaifu, a distant military outpost on the island of Kyushu. He was stripped of his titles, his wealth, and his right to petition the imperial court. Hearing of the decree, the retired Emperor Yuta rushed to the imperial palace to stop the exile of his loyal advisor. However, the palace guards, who had been ordered by Fujiwara no Takahira, blocked the gates and refused to let the retired emperor enter. Emperor Yuta stood outside the cold wooden gates for hours in the snow, but his appeals were completely ignored. Before leaving his beloved home in Kyoto, Michizane stood in his garden and looked at his favorite plum tree. He composed a famous farewell poem, asking the plum tree to send its fragrance on the east wind even if its master was gone. This poem, recorded in the historical chronicle Akagami, became one of the most famous literary works in Japanese history. The journey to Kyushu was long and exhausting for the 56-year-old scholar, who was treated like a common criminal by his guards. He was forced to travel by boat along the inland sea, facing rough waves and freezing winter winds. His young children were separated from him and exiled to different remote provinces, including Tosa and Sato, to prevent any rebellion. In Kyushu, Michizane was housed in a small, damp wooden hut on the outskirts of the Dazaifu government compound. The roof leaked during the heavy rains, and the local officials, fearing the anger of the Fujiwara clan, refused to give him enough food. He was placed under strict house arrest, forbidden from leaving the small yard of his simple dwelling. According to a famous legend, the plum tree from his Kyoto garden was so saddened by his absence that it uprooted itself. The tree flew through the sky in a single night from the capital to Kyushu to be reunited with its master. This miraculous tree, known as the tobium, still stands today at the Dazaifu Tenmangu shrine in Fukuoka. During his difficult exile in Dazaifu, Michizane spent his days writing poetry, reflecting on his loyalty and expressing his deep sadness. He wrote the famous poem Kenko no Shi, in which he compared himself to a trapped bird looking at the distant sky. He maintained his loyalty to the emperor, refusing to write any words of anger against Emperor Daigo. Michizane often climbed the nearby Mount Tenpan to pray for the well-being of the imperial family and to declare his innocence. He held his official imperial writing brush and raised a paper document to the sky, asking the gods to witness his pure heart. Despite his prayers, his physical health quickly declined due to the harsh climate and poor nutrition. On the 25th day of the second month in the year 903, Sugawara no Michizane died in his wooden hut at Dazaifu. He was 59 years old alone and far from the capital that he had served for decades. His loyal disciple Yumasake no Yasuyuki prepared his body for burial, placing his writings inside the simple wooden coffin. According to historical records, A wooden cart pulled by a single black ox was carrying Michizane's coffin to a nearby cemetery. Suddenly, the ox stopped on the road and refused to take another step, despite the driver's attempts to move it. Yasuyuki decided that this was a sign from Michizane's spirit, and they buried him on that exact spot. Shortly after Michizane's death, strange occurrences began to plague the capital city of Heian, terrifying the members of the imperial court. In the year 908, a severe pestilence broke out in the city, killing thousands of citizens and several members of the Fujiwara family. The streets were filled with the bodies of the sick, and medicine was useless. In the year 909, Fujiwara no Takahira, the main architect of Michizane's exile, fell gravely ill at the young age of 39. Before his death, Takahira claimed that he saw the spirit of Michizane transformed into two blue snakes crawling out of his ears. Despite his wealth and doctors, Takahira died in agony, leaving the clan leaderless. In the years that followed, Kyoto suffered from a sequence of terrible droughts, which destroyed the rice fields and caused widespread famine. The imperial court ordered priests to perform Shinto purification rituals, but the dry weather continued to scorch the earth. The common people began to whisper that the spirit of Michizane was punishing the country for his wrongful exile. In the year 923, Crown Prince Yasuakira, the son of Emperor Daigo and nephew of Takahira, died suddenly of a mysterious fever. He was only 21 years old and had been destined to inherit the imperial throne. The court was thrown into panic, as Yasuakira had been one of the supporters of the exile decree. To appease the angry spirit, Emperor Daigo issued an imperial decree in the year 923, posthumously restoring Michizane's rank as Yudaijin. The emperor also burned the original documents of the Shatai incident, hoping to erase the memory of the crime. However, the tragic events in the imperial family did not stop with these actions. In the year 925, the newly appointed crown prince, Prince Yasuyori, died of a sudden illness at only 5 years old. Yasuyori was the grandson of Fujiwara no Takahira, which convinced everyone that the Sugawara spirit was systematically targeting the Fujiwara bloodline. The court's fear grew as the imperial succession line was repeatedly broken. The series of disasters reached its terrifying climax during the storm of the year 930 in the Sarioden chamber. The lightning bolt that killed Fujiwara no Kiyochira also injured several other nobles who had supported the exile. The imperial palace was filled with the smell of sulfur and charcoal, and the courtiers fled in panic. Emperor Daigo, who witnessed the violent lightning strike in the Sarioden, was so traumatized by the event that he fell gravely ill. He abdicated the throne to his young son, Emperor Suzaku, and died 3 months later in the year 930. The emperor's death convinced the entire capital that Michizane had become a god of thunder. The courtiers identified Michizane's spirit with Raijin, the traditional Shinto deity of lightning and thunder, who controlled the storms from the sky. They believed that his spirit resided in the thunderclouds above Kyoto, launching lightning bolts at those who had wronged him. The name Karai Tenjin, or the fire-thunder heavenly deity, was used to describe his angry spirit. In the year 942, a young girl named Teiyu no Ayako from Kyoto reported receiving a dream oracle from Michizane's spirit. In the oracle, the spirit demanded that a permanent shrine be built for him in the capital, promising to protect the city if he was honored. This was the first time a commoner's vision influenced the imperial court's policy. In the year 947, the imperial court and local priests established the Kitano Tenmangu shrine in the northern part of Kyoto. This was a significant event, as it was the first major Shinto shrine built to deify a historical human who was not an emperor. The court hoped that regular Shinto rituals would calm his anger. The court appointed Michizane's descendants from the Sugawara clan to serve as the chief priests of the new Kitano Tenmangu shrine. By giving the Sugawara family control over the rituals, the court ensured that his family could care for his spirit. The family began performing annual ceremonies, offering fine silk and sake to the deified scholar. In the year 959, the powerful regent Fujiwara no Morisuke made a large financial donation to rebuild and expand the Kitano Tenmangu. Morisuke, a member of the Fujiwara clan, wanted to show that his family was no longer hostile to Michizane. The expansion transformed the simple wooden shrine into a magnificent complex with vermilion gates. In the year 987, Emperor Akijō officially designated Michizane as a protective deity of the imperial court, granting him the title Tenjin. This title, meaning heavenly deity, officially recognized him as a patron god of the nation, rather than just a local vengeful spirit. The court hoped this would bring eternal peace to Kyoto. In the year 993, the imperial court posthumously promoted Michizane to the office of Dajidaijin, the chancellor of the realm. This was the highest office in the Heian administration, one that Michizane could never have achieved during his lifetime due to his family background. The promotion was represented by a formal imperial scroll delivered to his shrine. Later in the same year, the court raised Michizane's rank to Shoichi, or senior first rank, which was the highest possible honor for a Japanese subject. This completed the administrative process of his rehabilitation, turning the former criminal into the highest-ranking noble in the history of Heian Kaiyo. The decree was carved into a wooden tablet at Kitano Tenmangu. The Fujiwara clan, once his bitter enemies, became some of the most active patrons of the Tenjin cult in Heian Kaiyo. In the 11th century, Fujiwara no Michinaga, the most powerful regent in Japanese history, made several official visits to the Kitano Tenmangu shrine. Michinaga offered valuable land and silk to ensure that Michizane's spirit would not harm his descendants. As the decades passed, the common people of Kyoto began visiting Kitano Tenmangu not out of fear, but to seek help. Because Michizane was a legendary scholar during his life, students and poets began praying to him for academic success. The fear of his thunder subsided, replaced by a deep respect for his intellectual achievements and poetry. During the late Heian period, the practice of copying Michizane's kanji or Chinese poems became a standard method of education for young aristocrats. His work was compiled in the Ruiju Kokushi, a historical text that he had edited which served as a textbook. Students believed that reciting his verses would invite the deity's blessing on their exams. The Tenjin faith spread rapidly beyond Kyoto when the imperial court established branch shrines in other provinces. One of the earliest branches was founded in Osaka, which later became the famous Osaka Tenmangu Shrine in the year 949. These shrines allowed local regional scholars and officials to worship the deity without traveling to Kyoto. The deification of Michizane was also influenced by Buddhism, which was highly integrated with Shinto beliefs in medieval Japan. Buddhist monks from the Tendai sect declared that Tenjin was an avatar of the Bodhisattva canon, the deity of mercy. This syncretism, known as Hanji Suijaku, allowed people to worship him in both Shinto shrines and Buddhist temples. During the Kamakura period, which began in the late 12th century, the newly established warrior class, or samurai, adopted the worship of Tenjin. The samurai valued the concept of bunbu ryodo, the dual path of the sword and the brush, representing military and literary arts. Warriors visited the shrines to dedicate their weapons and calligraphy scrolls before battles. The Kamakura shogunate's generals, including members of the Hojo clan, made regular donations to the Dazaifu Tenmangu shrine in Kyushu. They believed that Tenjin's control over wind and lightning could protect Japan from foreign invasions, such as the Mongol fleets. The shrine's priests conducted prayers for national defense under the orders of the shogun. In the Muromachi period, Zen Buddhist monks popularized the practice of Tenjin Meigo, which involved hanging scroll paintings of the deity in study rooms. These paintings depicted Michizane dressed in Chinese robes, holding a plum blossom branch, symbolizing his love for learning and nature. Zen scholars meditated before these images to gain poetic inspiration and intellectual clarity. The famous General Toyotomi Hideyoshi held a grand tea ceremony at Kitano Tenmangu in the year 1587. This event, known as the Kitano Grand Tea Ceremony, was open to people of all classes, from rich lords to poor farmers. Hideyoshi's patronage of the shrine helped rebuild the structures that had been damaged during the Sengoku Wars. During the peaceful Edo period, which began in the year 1603, the Tenjin cult experienced its greatest expansion. The Tokugawa shogunate promoted Confucian education, leading to the creation of thousands of private elementary schools called terakoya. Almost every terakoya room featured a small wooden altar dedicated to the Shinto deity Tenjin. In these Terracotta schools, young children from merchant and peasant families learned to read and write using calligraphy brushes. Before starting their daily lessons, students would bow to the image of Tenjin, asking for neat handwriting and academic success. This practice cemented Michizane's transition from a feared god of thunder to a gentle guardian of children. In the year 1662, the local community in Edo established the Yushima Tenmangu shrine to serve as a center of learning. This shrine became closely associated with the nearby Shoheiko, the official shogunate academy of Confucian studies. Aspiring government officials visited the shrine to pray before taking their final exams. The Kamedo Tenjinsha shrine, also built in Edo in the 17th century, became famous for its beautiful wisteria flowers and arched red bridge. This bridge, shaped like a drum, represented the difficult path to academic success that students had to cross. Visitors purchased wooden charms called mamori to protect themselves from failing their school exams. As the worship of Tenjin grew, the association between the deity and the ox became an essential part of shrine iconography. Visitors noticed bronze and stone statues of resting oxen placed around the courtyards of Kitano Tenmangu and Dazaifu Tenmangu. These statues, known as neidashi, were believed to have healing powers if rubbed by visitors. According to popular belief, rubbing the head of a neidashi statue would transfer the ox's quiet wisdom and focus to the student. If a visitor suffered from an illness in a specific part of their body, they would rub that part on the bronze ox to cure the pain. The metal of these statues became shiny and polished from centuries of hands. The plum tree also remained a central symbol of the deity, reflecting Michizane's final poem written before his exile from Heian. Every year in late February, the plum gardens of Dazaifu Tenmangu burst into shades of pink and white blossoms. Shrines throughout Japan hold the Ume Matsuri, or Plum Blossom Festival, to commemorate the anniversary of his death. During these festivals, shrine maidens dressed in white robes and red skirts perform the sacred Ume no Mai, or plum dance. This dance features movements that mimic the blowing of the wind through the flowering branches, accompanied by traditional court music. The performance honors the scholar's contribution to Japanese literature and his love of nature. In the first volume of the Kanka Bunso, Michizane wrote extensively about the natural landscape of Kyoto and the rituals of the imperial court. His poetry showed a deep influence of the Tang poet Baijui, whose verses were highly popular among Japanese intellectuals of the Heian period. Michizane's ability to mimic this classical style earned him the nickname of the Japanese Baijui. The second volume of the Kanka Bunso was written during his 4 years of administration in Sanuki province, representing a shift in his writing style. He focused on the dry fields, the salty wind, and the pale faces of the peasants who could not pay their taxes. These poems were later studied as important historical documents detailing Heian rural life. Before his exile, Michizane also edited the Ruiju Kokushi, a massive historical compilation that reorganized the events of the Nihon Shoki and other official chronicles. By categorizing historical events under subjects such as imperial decrees, natural disasters, and court rituals, he created an invaluable reference tool. His rigorous historical method set a new standard for Heian court scholarship. The Ruiju Kokushi was completed in the year 892 and presented to Emperor Yuda as a monument of national scholarship. This work demonstrated Michizane's belief that history should serve as a guide for contemporary governance and moral behavior. Unfortunately, parts of this grand work were lost during the destructive fires of the Anin War centuries later. During his long journey to Dazaifu in the year 901, Michizane stopped at a coastal port in Yamaguchi Prefecture. The local people welcomed the exiled scholar with respect, providing him with a temporary resting place near the shore. After his death, the locals built the Hafu Tenmangu shrine on that spot, making it the first Tenmangu shrine in Japan. The Hafu Tenmangu shrine in Yamaguchi contains ancient records detailing Michizane's conversations with local fishermen who offered him simple barley cakes. The shrine still holds an annual festival in November, where participants carry a sacred wooden cart to the harbor. This reenacts the moment when the exiled scholar departed the shores of Honshu for his final journey. The Shotai incident also led to the punishment of Michizane's closest academic associates, including the scholar Kaino Heisio, who was a famous poet. Heisio was demoted but managed to escape exile, eventually returning to high office after the Fujiwara influence waned. His survival allowed him to preserve some of Michizane's private letters that Takahira's men tried to burn. Another victim of the political purge was Prince Takio, who was forced to take Buddhist vows as a monk at the Ninjai temple. Prince Takio spent the remainder of his life in quiet meditation, separated from his wife, who was Michizane's eldest daughter. This severed the political link between the Sugawara family and the imperial succession, securing Takahira's grip. The panic that gripped Kyoto after the Seiryoden lightning strike was rooted in the Shinto belief of Goryo Shinko, the worship of angry spirits. The Japanese believed that when a high-ranking noble died in unjust exile, their spirit became a powerful force of calamity. To prevent these spirits from destroying the country, they had to be pacified through deification. The concept of Goryo Shinko had previously been applied to other exiled nobles, such as Prince Sugawara, who died in the 8th century. Prince Sugawara's spirit was blamed for plagues that forced the capital to move from Nagayakakayo to Kyoto. By deifying Michizane as Tenjin, the court followed a well-established pattern of using Shinto rituals to manage political guilt. Under Shinto tradition, a pacified spirit would transform from a destructive force of nature into a benevolent protector of the land. The court believed that by building Kitano Tenmangu, they could convert Michizane's lightning from a weapon of revenge into a source of agricultural rain. The ritual prayers focused on asking the newly formed deity to water the dry fields. Every year on the 25th of February, the Kitano Tenmangu Shrine hosts the Bakasai, a special tea ceremony commemorating the anniversary of Michizane's death. During this ceremony, tea prepared by the Grand Masters of the Senk schools is offered to the spirit of the deity. The ritual is performed in the middle of the blooming plum gardens. The imperial court also established the practice of sending a chokushi, or official imperial messenger, to represent the emperor at Kitano Tenmangu festivals. These messengers carried offerings of colored silk and read formal petitions written in classical Chinese, asking for the nation's peace. This ritual demonstrated that the imperial family continued to ask for Michizane's forgiveness. Beside the famous Tobium plum tree at Dazaifu Tenmangu, another legend describes the Omatsu, an old pine tree that stood in Michizane's garden. The legend says the pine tree tried to follow its master to Kyushu, but became exhausted and rooted itself in Kobe. Today, the Tsunashiki Tenmangu Shrine in Kobe preserves this legendary pine tree, which is visited by travelers. The Dazaifu Tenmangu Shrine complex in Fukuoka contains the original tomb where Michizane's body was placed after the ox cart stopped. The main sanctuary, or Honden, was constructed directly over this burial site, aligning the altar with the scholar's physical remains. This creates a unique spiritual connection that makes the shrine the primary center of the Tenjin faith. The identification of Tenjin with the god of thunder led to the inclusion of lightning symbols in early Tenjin scroll paintings. These scrolls, such as the Kitano Tenjin Enjiamaki, depicted Michizane as a red-skinned thunder god surrounded by drums and clouds. The scrolls were used by medieval priests to teach the history of the shrine to illiterate peasants. The Kitano Tenjin Enjiamaki, painted in the 13th century, is preserved as a national treasure in the Kitano Tenmangu Museum. The silk panels detail the political conspiracy of the Fujiwara, the exile to Dazaifu, and the spectacular storm that struck the Seiryoden chamber. The dramatic illustrations served to validate the power of the deity to the public. In the 15th century, Zen monks developed a new artistic legend known as Togen Tenjin, or Tenjin crossing to Tang, China. The legend claimed that Michizane's spirit traveled to China to receive spiritual instruction from the Zen master Wuzhen Shifen. Scroll paintings of Togen Tenjin depicted the Shinto deity wearing simple Zen robes and carrying a plum branch. These Togen Tenjin scroll paintings were hung in Zen monasteries in Kamakura and Kyoto, representing the harmony between Shinto and Zen. The images symbolized that intellectual scholarship and Zen meditation could lead to the same spiritual truth. Samurai warriors and Zen scholars held poetry gatherings in front of these scrolls to honor the deity. During the Edo period, artists of the ukiyo-e woodblock style created thousands of prints showing Michizane as a young scholar. Famous artists like Utagawa Kuniyoshi depicted him writing calligraphy under a cherry tree or riding a giant black ox. These cheap, mass-produced prints were bought by ordinary townspeople to hang in their homes for luck. The ukiyo-e prints often depicted Michizane holding a wooden tablet, or shaku, which was a symbol of official court authority in Heian. The prince helped popularize his image as a symbol of academic success and moral integrity among the merchant class. The prints were particularly popular in Edo and Osaka, where commerce and literacy rates were rising. In the 18th century, the practice of purchasing small wooden boards with drawings of oxen, became common at Tenmangu shrines. Students wrote their names and the names of the schools they wished to enter on the back of the wood. The were then hung on large racks near the main hall of the shrine. Today, these racks at Kitano Tenmangu are filled with tens of thousands of wooden plaques during the exam season in January. The handwritten messages contain prayers for passing university entrance exams and obtaining good grades in school. The priests burn these wooden plaques in a sacred bonfire at the end of the school year. Every January, Tenmangu shrines host the kakizome, a ceremony where children write their first calligraphy of the new year. Using large brushes and black ink, participants write traditional characters for spring, peace, or academic success. The scrolls are displayed in the shrine courtyards, and prizes are awarded to the best writers. The kakizome ceremony commemorates Michizane's reputation as one of the Sanpin, the three greatest calligraphers of his era in Japan. His brush strokes were described by his contemporaries as strong and elegant, mimicking the classical Tang style. By practicing calligraphy at his shrine, children hope to inherit a fraction of his artistic skill. The Dazaifu Tenmangu Shrine in Fukuoka features a large pond shaped like the Chinese character for heart, known as Shinjiike. Visitors must cross 3 red-painted wooden bridges over this pond to reach the main hall of the shrine. Each bridge represents a different stage of life, namely the past, the present, and the future. The first bridge over the Shinjiike pond is arched, representing the struggles of the past that must be overcome. The second bridge is flat, representing the stable present, and the third is arched again, representing the uncertain future. Walking across these wooden structures is a ritual purification process that prepares the mind of the student. The main hall or hondan of Dazaifu Tenmangu was rebuilt in the year 1591 by the daimyo Toyotomi Hideyori. The building is a prime example of Momoyama architecture, featuring dark wood, gold leaf decorations, and a heavy thatched bark roof. The structure survived fire and war to remain standing in modern Fukuoka. The Kitano Tenmangu Shrine in Kyoto features a famous gate known as the Sankamen, or the Gate of the Three Lights. The wooden gate is decorated with carvings of the sun, the moon, and the stars, representing the cosmic order. Visitors pass under this gate to enter the inner sanctuary where Michizane's spirit resides. Inside the Kitano Tenmangu sanctuary, the wooden columns are carved with patterns of plum blossoms, which was the family emblem of the Sugawara. The emblem, known as the yumebachi, features 5 circular petals around a central core. This design is printed on all official documents, charms, and lanterns used by the shrine. The Osaka Tenmangu Shrine, located in the heart of Osaka, is famous for hosting the Tenjin Matsuri every July. This festival, which began in the year 951, is one of Japan's 3 major festivals. The event features a land procession of 3,000 people dressed in imperial Heian court robes. The climax of the Tenjin Matsuri involves a spectacular boat procession along the Akawa River in Osaka. Over 100 wooden boats carrying sacred altars, drummers, and lanterns float down the dark river under a display of fireworks. The festival is held to invite the deity's spirit to bless the local merchant city. During the boat procession on the Akawa River, participants perform the Dindoko Funeji, a traditional rhythmic rowing dance accompanied by bells. The wooden boats race each other through the water, creating a lively atmosphere that reflects Osaka's merchant culture. This festival demonstrates the enduring connection between the Shinto deity and the city's prosperity. In the late 19th century, the Meiji government enacted the Shinbutsu Bunri law, which ordered the strict separation of Shinto and Buddhism. As a result, Buddhist statues and pagodas were removed from the Tenmangu shrine complexes throughout Japan. Despite these radical religious reforms, Michizane's status as a national patriot and deity of learning remained unchanged. The Meiji government praised Michizane as a model of absolute loyalty to the emperor, using his story in school textbooks. Students were taught to emulate his dedication to state service and his refusal to complain during his unjust exile. This nationalistic education helped maintain the popularity of Tenmangu shrines during Japan's modernization era. Today, there are over 10,000 Tenmangu branch shrines spread across the islands of Japan, from Hokkaido to Okinawa. Almost every school and neighborhood has a small stone altar or wooden structure dedicated to the scholar deity. This makes the Sugawara family's descendant one of the most widely worshipped figures in the country. During the peak exam season in January, travel agencies in Japan offer special package tour to Dazaifu Tenmangu for parents. Parents buy wooden pencils carved with Tenjin's emblem for their children, believing that writing with these pencils will bring good fortune. The shrine souvenir shop sells sweet cakes stuffed with red bean paste called yumagi mochi. The yumagi mochi cakes are stamped with the pattern of a plum blossom, referencing the legend of the flying tree. According to local history, an elderly woman offered a similar hot cake wrapped in a plum leaf to Michizane during his exile. Today, eating this warm cake is believed to bring physical health and intellectual energy. In the quiet gardens of the Kitano Tenmangu in Kyoto, the bronze statue of the resting ox sits under the shade of an ancient plum tree. The surface of the metal is highly polished, especially on the horns and head glowing under the afternoon sun. Students walk up to the statue, silently rubbing the cold metal before their exams. In the year 2001, the city of Kyoto and the Sugawara family marked the 1100th anniversary of Michizane's exile with a quiet ceremony. A single imperial messenger walked across the gravel of Kitano Tenmangu to lay a fresh branch of white plum blossoms before the inner altar. The heavy wooden doors of the sanctuary closed in silence,